Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. Please welcome tonight's host, author of 15 books, including Otto Preminger, The Man Who Would Be King, Foster Hirsch.
Okay, let me tell you just a little background about tonight. I got a wonderful call in August from a friend of mine who knows everything that happens in the theater. And he called and he said, his voice filled with excitement, he said, "Do you know that the star of your favorite film is going to be coming to New York to appear in a play this season?" And I said, but not missing a beat, "Patty McCormack is coming to New York?" And he said, "Yes, she's going to be in a revival of that great play, Mornings at 7. So what did I do? Indeed, yes. What did I do? I immediately called my good friend Bruce Goldstein, who's America's premier repertory programmer and who runs this fabulous theater, and said, "If Patty agrees, would you be interested in an evening of Bad Seed and an in-person interview with Patty McCormack?" He said, "Absolutely, and we're going to sell out." Well, you saw the sign outside, "No standby, get lost, sold out." I wrote to Patty. I'd interviewed her a number of times in California and asked her if she would be willing. She said yes, and here we are. Now, this is a special event. Tonight, after the screening of a 65-year-old film, the star of the film is going to be here, who gives an incredible, astonishing performance on every level. 65 years later. If you care about film history, I think that's an important fact. And there are very few places who can make that claim. It's also great that the Film Forum is back up in business, isn't it? With in-person events. And we're feeling comfortable enough to have a full house for Patty McCormack. Now, a few words about the film. First, I have to say, they don't make them like this anymore. And then I immediately have to say, they never did. This film is one of a kind. There's nothing like it before, and there's nothing like it since. Once you see it, it belongs to you, it's indelible, it's unforgettable. People say, well, it's a film of a stage play. It's static, it's stagey. And to that I say, I disagree. The cinematographer, Hal Rawson, got an Academy Award nomination for his cinematography, which is beautiful. The camera is not back where it would be if you were in the theater. It's up close, variety of angles, variety of lighting. It has filmic texture, camera movement. They open it up to other settings. They're extremely faithful to the play, but it is also a picture. Now, the second thing to talk about is the acting. It is extremely heightened. It is extremely overwrought. Friends of mine know I am a connoisseur of the overwrought. And there is nothing more overwrought than The Bad Seed, which is why it's my favorite film. It carries overwrought to a new dimension. Yes, you could say some of the gestures and some of the movements of the actors are mannered and stylized and theatrical, to which I would respond, yes, I agree with all of that. But it is done with such commitment and artistry and inner intensity that through the artifice, something true and deep and moving emerges. It's one-of-a-kind acting. I refer to all the actors, but I refer to Eileen Heckert's first scene. Exactly, exactly. You will watch that scene with a mixture of laughter, discomfort, uncertainty, too much, and by the time she exits after about 5 minutes, you're choked up, and as Patty said, every single performance after that scene, the audience applauded for the 320 times that they did the show on Broadway. It is an actor's exercise, but all of the actors have that kind of a steep challenge. This is a workout for pros. Only the most trained professionals could do what these actors do in this film. It is walking a delicate tightrope. Laughter. The film is so smart, it knows because it builds tension that it has to give you places to laugh. So the character of Monica Breedlove, beautifully played by Evelyn Varden, is a comic character. She's wrong about everything, first of all, so you laugh at her. They know that you have to break the tension, but you laugh at the film, You laugh with the film. You do not laugh at the film. I will go to my death. My last words may well be, the bad seed is not camp. This is, I think it's high melodrama. It's a thriller. I think it reaches the precincts of the neighborhood of tragedy. Some of the recognition scene with Nancy Kelly is really like tragic Greek drama. It has that power to it. I love the tagline of the film, a hidden shame out in the open, and the most rock bottom a woman ever had to do for love. I'm getting it a little mixed up. The sacrifice that the woman has to make for love is extreme. Talk about the man and the woman, but don't say anything about the girl. That was the tagline. Once you see the bad seed, you can't be indifferent to it. It's yours forever. It's indelible. It's unforgettable. But I realize that we will not be unified in our opinion or our reaction. You will react. You can't sit here for 130 minutes and not have a strong reaction to this movie. We will not be unified in our reaction. And so I leave you with this word of advice. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. Okay, here we are. Patty McCormack, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's see if this is on.
Before we get
Hello? Yes.
before we get into details,
Yes.
tell the audience that the end of the film
Yeah.
is not the end of the play.
No. I think probably I can't see anybody, so if I'm not staring at faces, it's just because I'm blinded. But I like probably how it looks, the light. Anyway, we did a play, and we could hardly see each other because of the blinding lights, but we all looked great, so it was nice. Anyway, the end of the play had an ending where Rhoda was saved, but the mom, Nancy Kelly, shot herself in the head, I guess, and so the movie ending was a little sketchy because that wouldn't have been the result, of her shooting herself unless she missed, basically. Not to make fun, but the theater ending was so much scarier because no one knew, and at the very last scene actually was written like the scene in the hospital where Monica announces, "But you still have Rhoda," and then out comes Rhoda, and does, "What will you have? What will you give me for a basket of kisses?" with her daddy, and he answers, and then that's the end. So it was not a happy time for the audience.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating, to say the least, in that era, especially, 1954 or 50.
Yeah, but they
55.
couldn't do that in the film because there was
Yeah.
a production code, and the criminal had to be punished, and you're the criminal.
That's
so
correct.
you can't live.
No.
Or the film couldn't have gotten released.
I remember the Hays Code. I've
Yes,
heard that so
you've
much.
heard that.
Yeah.
You couldn't have gotten away with it, but on stage you did.
But on stage you could. So that explains why the ending was changed. And also the reason we had a curtain call in the film was because Mervyn LeRoy really liked it, but it was done originally to take the edge off the ending, so that the audience could leave happily knowing that Nancy was spanking me, for my deeds.
So the curtain call in the film is exactly as it was
As
on
it
stage.
was, yes.
Exactly.
And very, very few replacements of the actors. A lot of us were brought right from New York, which was not common.
But, for good reason. Let's go back to the beginning. Do you remember your audition?
Vaguely, I remember my audition. I remember I was about 8.5. I hadn't turned 9 yet, and I auditioned with Nancy Kelly, and I don't remember what we did together, but the director was Reginald Denham. I always want to say Denny.
Yeah.
Remember the musician Reginald Denny? No.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can see better now. And I really don't remember the logistics of the audition, but there was a callback, I believe, and then it was announced that somebody else had gotten the job. It was published that some other kid actor at the time had gotten it, and I remember being very sad. So it showed me that and looking back, it showed me that I really enjoyed working.
Did you
as a
have
kid.
anyone help you with the audition, or was it just your own ideas?
Gosh, you got me. I wish I had an answer. I don't. I mean, of course, I know I was only reading. I think I started reading about 7. I was a little late reading. So before that, my mother would read the lines to me so that I could memorize them.
So you memorized what you auditioned
Probably.
without reading.
I would imagine. Or they just, I wish I could make up an answer, but I don't want to, I just know I do remember being in a theater, being not on stage. I remember being below the stage, standing in front of the stage, more or less, and Nancy Kelly being there, and the director, as I said.
And it was one callback, as you recall?
Well, as I recall, there must have been, because it was a very desirable part for a kid, and I'm sure that whoever was published got the job. She probably had a callback too.
But did your mother have any qualms about her little 8.5-year-old playing this part?
Obviously no.
Yeah.
Because I was living at home, and no. But she, it was that era too where, I think I told you the story once about blue denim,
Yes.
didn't I?
Yes.
I remember that they were interested in me for Blue Denim, which was a movie with our friend Marcia Hunt and Brandon DeWilder, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Brandon, who I was friends with. Anyway, but in the story, the lovely, beautiful Carol Lindley played the role, and she, but the character had to be pregnant, was going to get pregnant, so it meant that they had gotten together, and so that was immediately rejected by my mom.
By your mother. But you could be a psychopathic killer.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know whether she just picked, that for some, but it seemed like, so the message was, you're better off killing, than having sex. And so, especially at that age. And I'm making jokes about it.
Once you started rehearsals, there must have been a lot in the play that a kid wouldn't have understood. You didn't understand nature versus nurture,
No.
environment versus
No.
being born that way. You
No.
didn't understand any of that.
I really, no.
No.
Genetic things. And, no.
And
not
nobody
a clue.
explained them to you.
Well, no, because the outcome didn't matter. I mean, I know people, you go into the why of everything and all of that, but ultimately what I played was much simpler. It was that I was always right, and anything I wanted, I deserved. And most of the adults around me were idiots. And I had not a lot of patience for them. So when you think of those simple directions, and I really did love my daddy. I really did, and I could see that in the, and my grandpa. So I think I was more fond of men than of women in general. Stuff like that. Simple directions that you
But the nature versus nurture would have been pointless for you
Well-
to understand at that time.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they even discuss. I mean, no.
It wasn't
Yes.
discussed.
Yes
But-
is the answer.
Yes, and I'm convinced of, and
What?
seeing the film, Leroy has a thing for Rhoda. He can't stay away from her.
I didn't know
He
that
cannot
aspect.
You
at
didn't know
all.
that aspect either.
No, I had no clue. But later on, I learned that.
Can you
That
see
is-
it in the film?
Oh
now?
yeah, now
Yeah,
I
you can see it.
Even the shot where I'm down the stoop,
Yes.
down the stoop, and he does the water thing.
Yes.
And they shot behind my
Yes,
body,
It's sort
so
of
my little dress went up.
it's sort of sexual.
It seemed to be.
Yeah. But you wouldn't have known a thing at the
My
time.
mother obviously didn't get it, so
What did you must credit your Reginald Denham
oh,
with a
totally.
lot of help getting you
made
through
it-
this part.
He made it. It was never a problem. It was never a problem. It was fun to do because he was a wonderful director. Obviously, did a lot of things, didn't he?
Yes, he
quite
did.
well
Dial M for Murder was his big
Big.
hit. He was
Didn't
a
he
British director
Yeah,
who
he
did a
was
lot of
British.
stage,
And-
a lot of stage.
And I think there was something running at the time, Witness for the Prosecution.
Yeah.
And I believe he was connected to that. I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
think so. It was
Oh,
Dial
not
M
sure?
for Murder was his
Oh,
big
okay,
hit. And
okay.
that-
Anyway,
were the cast members nice to you, were patient with you? What I do want you to tell the audience is
what?
Henry Jones was
Oh.
the most different from the character. He was nothing like that character, obviously. But he was very kind to you.
He was. He watched out for me as a child actor, and he made sure that it was known that I wasn't going to school on matinee days, and things like that. And he looked like the enemy at the time. But in actuality, he was just a really terrific parental type person and very classy. Very sophisticated person.
So
Did
tot-
many roles,
Oh, yeah.
so that
this
was
is-
a stretch
This is
for
his
him.
finest hour, though.
Isn't it
Isn't that a
wonderful?
magnificent character?
Yeah, I loved it.
But
I
what
loved
you also told me, which is surprising and not,
What?
is the actor you least bonded with and the most
yeah.
attached was Eileen Heckart.
Well, because she had such, I would say, knowing now, being an adult, she had such an emotional journey. There was, both her scenes were like, a 10, they were, and for whatever reason, also, there was no opportunity to communicate with her. But it sort of played out in a funny way, nicely, because I had the least communication with her. She may have liked that also. I don't know.
To protect her part, in a way?
I don't know. I can't begin to analyze. I mean, because she had a wonderful sense of humor. I know that later on. I worked with her a couple of times later on. And so it could have just been the logistics of what we were doing, where she was on and then I came on, and that was
But
all we had together. But she worked with Nancy, and she worked with...
But I liked the idea that she used it for the part, that she didn't want to get fond of you.
maybe.
And
maybe.
didn't want to get close to you because you killed her little boy.
Right.
So
That
I
makes
mean, it
a-
makes
that
sense.
makes sense.
And isn't Eileen Heckart incredible?
Oh, incredible.
I mean, my
She's-
God.
She's the best.
Those
She's the
those
best.
two scenes are extraordinarily
Incredible.
difficult.
Yeah, and yeah. Yep.
You said you told
absolutely.
me, Patty, that you once played in a stage
Oh, yes.
production of
Well-
Bad Seed, and you played that role.
I did.
You did?
Yeah, but it was I'm sure I just absolutely mimicked her. You know what I mean? Just I heard her melody, in
Yes.
my head, and it was really hard to not do it that way. So, but it was a fundraiser for the Staten Island Shakespearean Theater Company, and my nephew, who is here tonight, Fred Cerullo, directed it. And Freddie is not a stranger to the business. So, although that's not his career, but he's done a few things himself. So,
But you saw how difficult that role is when you played it.
yeah. Oh, it was just really challenging, really challenging.
Did you bond with Nancy Kelly?
Oh, totally. We were, she was the kind of person who, on some matinees, oh, well, she bought us matching theater robes. And then on matinee days, she would oftentimes order from Sardi's, which was like, I was so sorry Sardi's wasn't open yet while we were, are they open yet?
No, I don't think
Oh.
so. But they must.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to. That's
But I do-
terrible if they're
yeah.
not.
So maybe that's where my love for cream spinach began, you know? And
Did
so
you
we
know
would-
that Nancy Kelly was a child actor as well?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know she was young,
Very
but I
young.
didn't know she was a child.
Yes, and her career goes way back to
Yeah.
the 20s. She began very young.
What was the film she was in? Oh my goodness! I shouldn't start a conversation if I don't see the end in sight. It's a lesson I have to learn. But it was a big film. Sorry, you look it up. Google it. She was 17. Anyway,
She was very young, so she might
Very
have had some understanding of you as a child performer.
maybe that.
As a-
And she had a brother, Jack Kelly,
Yes.
who worked quite a bit.
Yes,
And so I think maybe the mother.
she had a
Was
stage mother.
inspiration.
She did have a stage mother.
Yeah,
But
I
I
bet
think
she
she
did.
gives an extraordinary performance. It's
Yeah.
so difficult. She takes
I
such
know.
chances and
Do you know when
so
she,
big.
And when she hits her hand
Yes.
on the table like that, I think something happened one time because I think it's a thing for her, you know. And I think she broke her hand at one point. Anyway,
I mean, that's the best
little tidbits.
dramatization of rising hysteria I've ever seen.
Isn't it
Oh,
wonderful?
it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
it seems large and theatrical, but it's very truthful.
And remember that the arc of it is all there, and that was easier in the theater when you had where you kept going because you build it and it keeps going and it grows, but that was film. So for her to be able to hit those different levels,
Which she did
Which she did,
magnificently.
yeah.
Now, you did the show for 330 performances.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And you never missed a performance.
No, you weren't allowed to back then.
Well,
it was not
It
acceptable.
wasn't acceptable, but you never missed a performance.
Yeah.
And Patty was, some of us old-timers will remember, Patty was on I Remember Mama.
Oh yeah.
And so there were some Fridays that the show
Oh, yeah.
taped at 8 to 8:30, and in those days the curtain for theater, believe it or not, was 8:40.
8:40.
And you got into a taxi and went across town
And changed in the
and changed
cab.
in the taxi. Were you ever late?
Yes, I was late, and I know that my understudy was just green, standing with the costume on, wishing to God I'd get there because she was a little girl too, and
She was afraid to go
she
on.
it wasn't like All About Eve. It wasn't like that. It was like, get me out of here, So
Parenthetically, your director, Reginald Denham, was married to the woman who wrote the original story, All About Eve, Mary Orr.
really,
Yes. And Reginald Denham is
Wow.
the real-life counterpart of the Gary Merrill character in All About Eve.
wow.
You didn't know that till now?
I didn't know
No,
that.
okay.
That's amazing. Wow.
Was it difficult to do the show 8 times a week with these huge emotions?
For me,
Yes, for you.
no. I would say it would have been harder for the women, the adults, But no, I'm telling you, it was so fun to do what I did. Because you could be absolutely awful, and just sarcastic. And well, I come from New York originally, Brooklyn, and our whole family has that ability. It's genetic. We have that sarcastic ability. That's all I'll say.
No, I once asked
So I
you.
tapped into it.
But I once asked Patty, because we've done this a lot, but
Yeah.
we're pretending it's the first
Yeah,
time.
we're pretending.
But I asked you, I asked you, how you felt about the character.
Yeah. And
And you said,
that I loved her, you know? And later on, I was asked to do it again. Well, there's a friend of mine. Did I mention Muscatine, Iowa, and Max Allen Collins? He's actually Al Collins. He's always said his dad was Max, but on the novels that he writes, he's Max Allen Collins. And he lives in Muscatine, Iowa. He's written a lot of stuff. They did a movie on one of his books. He came up with an idea to grow Rhoda up as though she lived in Iowa, and it was actually a really healthy thing to do for me. The town raised the money to make this indie movie, and there are two of them. There's Mommy and Mommy's Day, and there was something really helpful in doing that for myself, because I connected so strongly with the character that it was nice to grow her up, basically. And I felt that was accomplished in my mind, you know? Yeah.
but did you have to love the character in order to play her, do you think? But you loved Rhoda.
Well, yeah, I look back on it fondly, and there are things I could learn from her, to this day, really.
Yeah, but I once asked you, Patty. I said,
I'm not
but
kidding.
you can tell Patty has very little in common with Rhoda Penmark, and I asked I asked you about becoming Rhoda, and you said, well, not yet, but it still hasn't happened.
No, well, her confidence is awe-inspiring, and her sense of self and centeredness and all of that.
When you did the film,
that we all need.
yeah, she has those qualities.
She had them. Yeah.
Yes, she has those
Yes,
qualities. When you did the film, was there a lot of change? Was Mervyn LeRoy different from Reginald Denham?
Oh,
did he
sure.
help you in a different way?
He really liked what we did, so he tried to make it as easy as possible to run our scenes the way we had, and then if he had adjustments for film, he would do that. Maybe a little less here, a little more over here. But in general, he was very respectful of the production.
He loved the production.
Yeah.
He became the producer as well as the director of this
Yeah.
because he loved the material.
The other night, I met his granddaughter and great-granddaughter, who came to see Mornings at 7, which some of the some of the people here. I'm not sure. You are. I can't see it.
We're going to get to you. We're saving you for the last.
You're the only people allowed to ask a question.
Yes. But when you did the film, did it feel fresh or did it feel like you were repeating something?
Oh, it felt fresh, I have to say, because every time you did it anyway, it felt fresh, especially in the theater. But
you never got tired of doing it.
No, I didn't. I mean, I was a pretty happy kid, I have to say.
Did you play for audience reaction? Did you, if you got
I love
if you got a grimace, did you play up the grimace
yeah.
a little bit?
I remember that clearly. Like a lot of those horrible faces I made, I enhanced them because I did a little one once, and then I heard them go, and then I thought, oh, this is fun, so and then I do it a little bigger.
But the film, I was telling the folks beforehand that this isn't a film. It is not a transcription of a play. It's a reimagined film.
Yeah,
and
it was very different. From
it's very different.
And they have exteriors.
Exterior
we were
scenes.
all in the main living room. Everything occurred there, and I never saw the picnic. It's fun to see the picnic scene. Shelley Fabre was in the picnic scene, and Sissy is in it.
Kathy Garver is
Kathy Garver.
Kathy
Yeah,
Garver,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, who's
But-
written a lot of books.
She has.
Yeah.
But it opens it up, and the camera changes, or low angles and close-ups.
Yeah.
So the rhythm is very different from the rhythm of a play. It's not
That's-
just the
that's
camera
true.
there and you're just saying lines. It's not that at all.
My favorite visual was when I got to. It felt like I was. I don't know. It felt like a dance or something. But I loved after the shoe scene, and then I go into in the film anyway, and I go into the kitchen, and I open the incinerator door, and throw the shoes in one at a time, and then did that, and I knew the camera rose up, and that was one of my favorite things to do. I don't know why, but
It's
it
a great shot.
very cool.
It's a great
Yeah,
shot.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But was Mervyn LeRoy helpful in interpretation, or were your interpretations set by the time you got to the
They
film?
were. They were.
They were set.
Not to take away any credit from Mervyn LeRoy, of course, but I think he was really pleased most of the time with what we did, and as I said, because he was a film director, he knew what would play better, and what wouldn't. So.
And so he did sometimes
I don't-
bring it down a
I
little.
think we were all pretty big, but that was we were all doing a style of
Yes.
the time, and so everything was a heightened theatricality sort of thing. A lot of people would say it was pretty hammy, but
I've
But
had many arguments on that subject. I
But
don't
I like
think it
that.
is.
I
It's
like it.
heightened.
yeah, and we're all, at least it's not just one of us doing it. You know what I mean? Where you'd say, but we're all kind of doing it. So I enjoy it.
Now, for years, I know if I had invited you to an evening like this, you might have said no. I mean, weren't there times when you really didn't want to talk about the bad seed?
Oh, sure. Yeah. There were periods of time where I was, because it was, especially in transition into teenage years and whatever. And back in that day, it was considered, if you had a job where you were a kid and now you were an awkward teenager, you looked like a has-been. Yeah, that's like not a thing you want to be. So, so a lot of times it was played down. And I tried to focus on only now, and but then as time went on, the strangest thing was happening with social media and all that stuff, and people started to honor people's pasts, because you just Google somebody and you say, "Oh my God, look what they did," or "Look at," and with that, because it began to get received well outside of me. It gave me permission to honor it again.
And so you're happy honoring. You realize
I
it's a
feel-
landmark film.
Yeah, and it's my life,
Yeah.
And so you think, that was pretty amazing to start out like that and have that happen. And
You once said to me, Patty,
You
that you didn't want your career to be thought of as you did The Bad Seed and nothing else.
yeah, of course, everybody has that, But there's always something you do in a career where they associate that with you, no matter what you do. You know what I mean? And so I think, but particularly because I was a child, and I wanted to have something current. So I have to say, I'm just going to throw this in because it was so appreciated. That when I dared to do this latest thing with for mornings at 7, that nobody said I didn't belong in New York. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, we're
No, it
thrilled to
was
have you.
so nice, and they have no idea how important that was, because I haven't been in New York in 100 years.
By the way,
you know what I mean?
by the
So-
way, the years between The Bad Seed
Yeah.
and Mornings at 7,
What?
66 years
Oh.
is a Guinness Book of World Records that you set between New York appearances. 66
Is
years.
that a
So-
good thing?
Well, yes, it is a good thing because I'm going
Okay.
to expand that.
Okay.
Patty has been working steadily for over 70 years.
Oh yeah.
She has never given up.
No.
You don't give up.
No.
Sometimes the films weren't great. Sometimes you were in good things. Sometimes A-list, sometimes B-list. You never stopped working. You were always out there trying.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
And so, I mean,
I-
so you love your profession,
Some years had more energy than others for it.
but you never
but-
really dropped out. You never gave up.
No, I never. I mean, there was a period. You know what? There was a period where I did nothing, and it was from. I think I was from like 18 to 21, 3-year period, nothing, and I was in New York, and but that was it. Other than that, there was never a big stretch. I always did something, and
You
I
always
did a
did
lot of
something.
theater, but not in New York. You know.
I saw you in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in California.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. Terrific.
Sister Woman.
Yes, yes. May.
And Jose Quintero.
Yes. Oh, it was a terrific production.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrific production.
Yeah, it was fun.
Terrific. And I must tell you 2 credits. Do you know that Patty is the original Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker? The original on Playhouse 90,
Yeah.
opposite Teresa Wright. You
Yes,
originated the role.
Teresa Wright and then the weird thing is Teresa Wright played Cora in Mornings at 7.
Yes, in the
Isn't
1980
it?
revival.
She was
yes.
yeah.
And then
Must have been.
something, we're all film buffs here.
Yeah.
Patty was cast by Orson Welles to appear in his
Oh, yeah.
unfinished Don Quixote.
Yeah.
And you told me that when you were working with Welles, your mother said to you, you know, Patty, you're working with somebody who's very important.
Yes. Yes, she did.
She did.
But he was really and people shook. You know, I think he inspired fear in a lot of people around him. But he was because he was so clearly Orson Welles, you know, talented and, you know, trying to make movies when nobody would let him, you know, or support him anymore. That's a long story.
Yes.
But it was in Mexico, and we shot at a little motel, and my mother was there, obviously, and he was so nice to work with. He'd come down after rewriting each night before, just changing things a little bit, you know. And when you're a kid, you don't get nervous over this remembering, you know. But he had a twinkle in his eye. I always said that when he would talk to me because you could see the sweetness in him. And but I'm telling you, people feared.
They feared him.
Feared him.
Feared him.
Yeah. But I didn't.
You didn't. You didn't.
No, because he was nice. He
But
was
the
so nice.
film, have you seen?
No.
No, it's
They
unfinished.
cut it out. No, they cut. The only thing left in the finished Don Quixote is my sitting in a movie theater watching the film, and something else really small. But we had all the stuff about his telling me the story before each segment. It was gone. So whoever took over cut it up where he probably wouldn't have been pleased.
So, but that's happened in so many of his films.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful memory to have
I
to be
know.
working with a master like that.
Terrific, huh? Yeah, wonderful.
And you worked with 2 important films recently. Do you know Patty was Pat Nixon in Frost Nixon?
Oh yeah,
And you look a little like Pat Nixon,
Yeah.
a little bit.
yeah.
yeah.
I had her hair, and
Yeah.
I studied her. You know,
And you were in The Master directed by the wonderful Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, that was thrilling. Yes, and yep.
So you come to New York
Yeah.
for Mornings at 7,
Yes.
which is one of the greatest of all American plays. And it's a wonderful ensemble. You're
Oh,
all
so good.
terrific.
Oh,
You're
we had a
terrific
good
in it.
time.
There isn't a trace of Rhoda Penmark in her performance.
Yep.
Not anything. It's a completely different character. I
Yeah.
saw it 4 times, as you know.
I know.
I did. I saw it 4
It's much,
times.
almost almost got my nephew's record.
Yeah, his
He
was
was-
7, I think.
yeah, 7.
Yeah, okay, but 4 times,
Yeah.
and it was superb.
Yeah.
Was it nervous making to come back to New York and be on a stage?
Oh, well, by the time it had a lot to do with being COVID, being locked down, life not being what it was, not seeing the grandkids, not seeing anybody, death lurking at the door, and realizing that, and when the opportunity came up, I normally probably, if it had been another time, I probably wouldn't have said, yeah, throw my name in, because it meant leaving, for one thing. We all get stuck in our own patterns, I guess, and so with that really made me want to do something scary, or at least with a lot of life in it, and I thought, when is that going to happen again? I think of how old I am, and there aren't a lot of parts for old people, so, and there were 4 of them, so 4 older women. And so that was really, and then my friend Dan, threw my name in with Julian Schlossberg.
Yes.
And Dan said, watch what you wish for. And I said, okay, I will. And then it happened. It happened that they said they were interested, and that was that. So we were all sorry, not to bemoan this, but that we didn't play the whole run. It would have been nice. But I think we all liked it very much, what we had, and enjoyed it.
It was a beautiful
Yeah,
production.
Yeah.
And
I'll
cast
always-
and crew stand up. Who's
Yeah,
here?
you can't see anybody. I don't know who else here.
Who's here?
Hey, you got, oh, wow.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Look at this.
okay.
All right.
Do any of you have a question? I think Patty said 1 or 2 of you had a question.
Well, if you do, if you don't worry about it. And
yes, I see a
we may
hand
have
raised.
covered everything.
Somebody from the cast, not for the audience. No questions from the audience.
Aw.
How many takes did you do in the film?
You mean in general? We had I remember it was a short shooting schedule, maybe 6 weeks.
Really?
So not a lot, because there was a lot to do, So I would say it would depend, but I don't really remember a lot of takes, honestly, because we all knew what we were doing. And if there was a problem, it would have been technical more than anything. And they knew what they were doing. So I don't remember it being tiresome like that, That's up.
I should say that Patty was the first child nominated for an Academy Award.
Huh.
Before that, it was always just an honorary award.
Oh.
But you were the first competitive
In an
Oscar
adult
in
in an adult
an
category.
adult category.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But then
Yes.
Tatum O'Neal. Was he in an adult category? Oh.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
But this was one of the first, right?
It-
First female.
Oh,
Okay.
yay.
First female. but I have to say for myself, it's the greatest performance by a child I have ever seen. It's extraordinary. The greatest. And
Thank you.
Patty is, as you can see, is not very hard to talk to. You all probably want to say hello to her, but would you allow her to go in to the lobby, and she'll be at a table, and you can come up and say hello, and if you have questions, I'm sure she'll be happy
Yeah.
to answer them.
Absolutely.
But we've planned a little something. We're going to end with Patty McCormack delivering one
Oh,
of
no.
one of Rhoda Penmark's greatest lines.
Oh. It's hard to wire up right now, but well, you should have fed me the cue. That would have been nice.
I don't know.
You mean you want me to just say, "Give me those shoes."
Patty McCormack.
Something like that.